Well, she traveled widely as a young woman, and she was very intrepid and pioneering, and traveled alone as a young woman, sometimes at a time in history and in places that were not necessarily safe. So she was tough, but she loved travel and she loved trains. And I think that she was very interested in archaeology, as you may know, and so often had reason to come to the Far East. And so the journey back on various trains, the murder on the Orient Express in the book begins in Aleppo, in Syria, with the Taurus Express, which takes her from there. But she knew and understood that the Orient Express, the very words were glamorous. They had an excitement to them. And so her experience of it was very special. I think that people who lived through what we now call the golden age of travel on boats and the early planes, and especially the trains, they knew even at the time that this was special, because a kind of level of sophistication, and I suppose there's no other word for it, luxury, was brought to these palaces on wheels that was highly unusual. And if you could have that luxury while you were crossing Europe through the night, that was pretty romantic. Well, we did widen the corridors just a little. We were shooting in 65mm, a big widescreen format, with the feeling that we definitely wanted this to be a big screen cinema experience. Best place to see it. We all watch things on our devices these days, but if you want to go on the train, but you can't actually go on the train, come and see the movie and go on the train that way. But the 65mm cameras are heavy, and to move them with the flexibility that I wanted, we needed to just widen the corridors, widen the rooms sometimes, and generally cheat a little bit. But otherwise, it's a pretty faithful rendering of the dimensions of the train, but with our own little quirks. We borrowed from many of the periods that the train had redesigns on, so we come up with something. We're a little cleaner and leaner, a little more Art Deco than some versions of the train. And yes, we also had a train that, yes, it chugged along. We had a mile of track at our studios, and we could move it that way, but we could also kind of pull it apart as well. We could pull the sides off, we could pull the roof off, we could sort of use it like a toy train, really, but except it was completely full size.